All right, so I'm gonna show off this to-do app. I did get most of the front end from a tutorial I was doing on Udemy, but they did not hook up a back end, so I went ahead and wrote the back end and then made this. If you can see, this doesn't have any to-dos in there right now, but that's also because whenever I first started this, it didn't have the back end up. But now that I have my back end up, these are the things that are in my database. And these are just to-dos. I can add a to-do. So I can do something like this and it adds it. These numbers are just the IDs, but of course these can be configured and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just showing you a very, very basic CRUD application. And if at any point you want to delete, so remember I did the create. I showed you the create. The read is already doing this. Oh, I guess I did not do the update. I'll have to do that also. But you guys have seen that with my other application where I just have a button that says update. So I did not do that for this one yet. That's an easy add for me, so I'll just try to do that later. But then it does have the delete, so it deletes it. And then, of course, it just keeps it there. So that's what I'm going to go today to do. And again, the structure of this is the right repo. I have a front end, which is done in React, and I have my backend API, which is done in Spring Java. And then I'm going to fill out more of this README on how to get it started. But really, if you just download this code, and if you already have NPM, and if you already have all the things that we've been doing in this class, you could technically run this. The only thing that you have to do is hook up your database, and you could run this app as is. So let's go over some features, functionalities of this. Actually, let's just start from scratch and let's just go all the way through the process that I took to do this. So again, I'm going to stop these. I am going to show you the structure if I can remember how to zoom in. So I just care about the structure here. Remember, I'm doing a to-do app. So I have a to-do controller, I have a to-do model, I have a to-do repository, as we have done before. And then I have the main application. The only other thing I did here was the application properties, which does the data source and the JPA. So all of this stuff is what we've been doing in class here recently. And the back end's pretty straightforward. So we'll get to that here in a second. The front end, there was a lot more just because I was following the tutorial. So I'll show you the steps there. Hopefully I can remember all the in-between steps because I think that's the most important. But again, I just care about structure over here on the side. You don't have to have all of these different components, but that's what the tutorial I was watching did, which does make sense. Where I have my main application, which is my app.tsx. Also, I did this in TypeScript. So I'm going to do it again in TypeScript whenever I show this for you again. Remember, with TypeScript, the only difference is you have to state what the type is all the way through. And so I'll show you how to do that. And then the structure here, my service is the thing that calls the backend API. So this is the actual URL that goes to. So Axios is the library that I use. It's a common generic one. There are other libraries, but it's generic. The model of the to-do is going to have an ID, a description, and a sign, which is the same exact structure as the backend to-do. I wanted to make sure those were the same. And then this is because it's, instead of making all these different pages for this simple application, I just more or less made a to-do table. So you can see here, I made a table with a head with some rows. And then that's the header rows. And then the body does the map. We've done map. It's been a while, but we've done this map feature. And then for each to-do in the map, I'm going to actually add it to a row item and then handle the row item as a separate entity. So the row item this is the row. So table row. I'll go over all of this here in a second, but that's where I added the delete button. And then if you remember, I had a form down at the bottom, and then this is the form. And again, a lot of this, because I did get it from a tutorial, they did a lot of the bootstrapping. So I'm going to show that as well, just so you guys get an overall picture. To be honest, when we get to a lot of this, I will copy and paste, but I'll talk through every single line at least so that you'll understand what it is. But that's the form on how to, that's the button that you submit to actually add the to-do. Yeah. So let's try to start this from scratch. So let's say that I had no clue where to start. The first thing I would do, and this step will be done for you, is you need a repo. You just need one. So on GitHub, the IAs will do this, but if you're doing this by yourself, you could do this. I'm just going to do new repo. I'm going to say I don't really want a template. This is going to be to do demo. Make it public. You can add a README. I eventually like adding READMEs. You don't have to do this. If you already have a running application and then you want to add a repo to it, you want it just blank. That's a call out there. If you already coded and you just want to add your repo to it, do not select this. But since I didn't, I'm just going to do a README. I think whenever I start my programs, a lot of these git ignores just happen for me, so I'm not too worried about that right now. And I'm going to hit create repository. Again, I have not coded anything for this yet. So I think it's easier if you go ahead and make the repo first. And then what you do is you copy the repo and bring it down. So you find a nice location that you want, wherever it is. And I'm going to go ahead and open a terminal right here. This is exactly the folder that I want to put my repo in. So I'm going to say git clone in that repo. Remember, it's pretty much empty except for the README. Here is where I will tell you my preference. You don't have to do this, but it gets a lot less confusing. I go into my actual repo, or my file here, to-do demo. Okay. Now that I'm in my to-do demo, I do all git commands right here in a separate terminal. So remember, we're going to have a front-end application, we're going to have a back-end application, but git goes to both of them. And sometimes your computer gets mixed up on, if you're in your back-end application, you say git add, it will not add your front-end stuff. So you have to do those separate, where because this is on the outside of both of them, it will do it for both applications, both your front and back end. So my suggestion is always do your git commands at the root, which is a little different this time because our root is one level removed. So this is where I would do all my git commands, such as, again, I don't have anything in this folder except the git and the README. So right now, the first thing I need to do is create a front end and a back end application. So the first thing I'm going to do is the vite command. Go back here. So I'm just going to go to the vite.dev.guide or whatever. I'm going to go down here and find the command. The first one here says npm create vite latest. That's the one I want. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to start doing some things. It's going to say, what's my project name? And I'm going to say to do demo UI. So you can title this however you want to. UI usually means, user interface. So it's like your front end, or you can say front end. And then again, I'm going to select React. I'm also going to do TypeScript. And then it tells me my next commands to do. All right, so this is just installing all those packages so that I can actually start doing things. I could run the npm run dev here if I really wanted to. But again, I'm using this more for my holistic thing. So I'm actually going to go back out. I see my to-do demo UI right here. I'm going to open this in VS Code. Right here, get repositories found. I'm going to click always. What that has done is it, instead of creating another Git repo inside here, it saw there was a Git repo one level removed in a parent directory, and it now has associated that parent GitHub with my GitHub, which is exactly what, or Git configuration, which is exactly what I want. So again, this terminal, I can just go ahead and close it because I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go ahead and just mess with this. Again, just as a refresher, this is just the default configuration. Here's your TypeScript stuff that you haven't seen before, but you just leave it alone. There's my README. Don't care about that right now. My package, JSON and lock, which again, I don't have to touch. And remember, your index.html is the first place that your browser is going to look. So this is what the browser sees. It has this ID of root. That remember, we're going to override this root with all of our JavaScript on our project. And then it says to import this main.tsx. Remember, it's TSX instead of JSX. Somebody asked, is it hard to switch between JSX and TSX? I think it is. I've tried to do it before, and it's easier for me to just restart it in TypeScript. If you don't have that many files, it's not that hard, but it is hard because you have to go into these configurations and change some of them. This environment doesn't really matter. You can probably delete it if you really wanted to, but the main TXS, remember, index.html, the main TXX is the thing that runs. This is where it says, hey, go get that root and create a React DOM and put it inside that root. React strict mode, don't worry too much about that, but the app is the only thing running inside there. So if I go to app, which is the app.txx, which is right here, this is what's running right now. So if I open up my terminal and I say npm run dev, and open this up, it does the generic Vite and React thing with the counter. That's your just default stuff. I'm going to go ahead and close this until I have something that I actually can show. And I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of that because I don't need any of that. I don't need the count. I don't need any of this stuff. So that's just a blank application. To make sure that my program is running, I might say something like this. And then assets. I don't need this. If you had images, you might put that in the assets folder, but because I don't, I'm just. All right, so I think I have trimmed this all the way out. And then again, I'm going to run my application just to make sure that it shows the to-do app there. To-do app. So it shows it right there. So I know that mine is all cleaned out, ready to go for me with this. All right. So the first thing I need to do is start putting in some code. Let's see. What's the best way to do this? This is where I don't always know where to start. I'm trying to get to a point where the best thing to start is to get something running. So I think what I'm going to do is, because it is TypeScript, let's go ahead and add a new folder. And this is going to be my models folder. Again, I don't know if this is just because I am a back-end developer, so this is naturally what my instinct is to do. And then I'm going to say this is a to-do model. And then my to-do model is going to be an interface. That just means it's a structure. I've seen this done with class before. You can do export class, but with classes, you have to have a constructor. And because I'm not actually constructing anything, I'm just showing it. With an interface, I can say, here's the structure, make sure it fits the structure. But I'm not actually creating anything, constructing. It's weird in JavaScript per se. But again, I just have three things. I have an ID that's a number. I think it's the syntax. Description, that's a string. And assigned, that's who the to-do is assigned to. That's also a string. So that's my model. I will do the same exact thing in Java once I make my Java backend, because I need these things to be the same. Now, the whole reason I did that is so that whenever I go to my app.txx, yeah, the shape, that's the structure, yeah. That's so that whenever I go down to my app.tsx, I'm going to try to add in some to-dos. So I'm going to say const to-dos equals, but since my to-dos, I have to actually like type it. You're going to do to-do model and an array of them. And I thought I had my cheat sheet here. But I might have to pause for a second to get my cheat sheet at. It'll be something like this. Again, I might have to get my right. So just so you kind of understand what I'm doing here, this is mock data. Whenever you try to do the front end without the back end, you have to say what the data at least looks like before you do it. This is how teams work together, is they come up with this together, and then somebody puts it in the front end just like this. And then after the back end gets developed, then the front end developer can redo this and pull in the information from the back. So this is, I will not have this whenever I actually deploy this. It'll just be, it's just here for now. So now I can use the to-dos down here and actually display them. So whenever I display them, I don't want to display them in a table. So I'm going to do table. I'm going to have table head. And then the table row. And then TH is like a cool little bolding thing. and I'm going to have the ID. The description. And we assign. And then at the beginning, so that's my table head. I'm just now getting enough information where I kind of want to go ahead and see what this looks like to see if I'm even on the right. Is this still running? It is still running. Let me see what this looks like. Okay, so there you see that it's popping up in a table. It doesn't look very good, but it's at least running there. Okay, so then I want to go ahead and make the table body. Okay. I could manually do these, but I think we have done enough JavaScript that I can go ahead and just use the, this is how you inject JavaScript, actual scripting into this TXX here. So now I'm going to write some code. I'm going to say, hey, those to-dos up there, let's go ahead and map those into a function. And then I'm going to take each to-do in the to-dos and map it. I think this can go here. Yeah. So what do I want to do with each of the to-dos? So I've grabbed the to-dos. What do I want to do? I want to do my table row stuff. So I'm going to do more or less this right here. But here, I'm going to do the, I think you have to do this again. Yep. You're going to do the to-do dot ID. To-do dot description. And to-do dot assign. So let me see what this looks like now. All right. So if you can see, there's my table now. Iterated through. So it's coming together. Just trying to review some of those React things that we haven't done in a while. What else? Let's go ahead and add some Bootstrap because this is getting a little frustrating with the look of it. If I go to my index.html, I'm going to say to do app demo. The fastest way that I have seen to add Bootstrap to this is if you go to the get bootstrap, getbootstrap.com. It says that you can install it this way, and there are ways to install it. The fastest way for me, especially for this proof of concept, is to do these two scripts right here. So I'm just going to copy this. And put it in the header of our index.html. To be honest, I think you can get away with just one of these, but I always do both because there's some JavaScript that it pulls in. So all I did was I copied and pasted those. I got them straight from this getbootstrap.com, both of these. Once I put it in the index.html, I can use it anywhere in my program. So I don't have to worry about, did it get set somewhere? So I just did that. And then what I can do is go back here and actually put in some bootstrapping. So I am going to copy and paste some things. Such as if you remember, you use class name equals, and then you can set whatever your class names are. These are Bootstrap classes. What other ones do I want to add in right this second? That might be all. Would that do what I needed. Oh, there you go. Looks a little bit better, right? This table hover, I thought it was kind of cool because now whenever you hover over it, you can kind of see. So great question with Bootstrap. You just type it in here. So if I wanted to figure out what the table was, I would click table, and on tables, it tells you like class table does these. It actually says like scopes. I think I'm going to go ahead and add those in as well, just because. But then you can do things like default and primary. So I can do, if I just did table primary and I added this to the end tier, then I go back and you can see that it's blue, like the primary table is blue. You can do on rows, you can do on TDs, table striped. So again, there is a performance hit. I just want to warn you, like if you're going into a job interview, but for this, you just do it. Again, your primary goal is just to get things to work and to get things to look fine. So, but if in an interview they're like Bootstrap, we don't use Bootstrap, we use something like Tailwind, etc. There are other features that are a little less performance of it, like a performance hit. The only reason this takes a performance hit is you are pulling in all of the classes and all of the stuff that Bootstrap has to offer, where with Tailwind, it doesn't pull in as much. And if you're talking about a proof of concept like this is the fastest way to get this up and running. I was going to show you what that looked like. So there's the alternating ones, striped. So hopefully that makes sense. I am definitely not an expert on Bootstrap, but I can go through here and figure out what I want. If you want table dark, if you want it to be dark, whatever you want. And this is how you kind of figure those out. I am, just because they told me to right here, I'm going to go ahead and do this scope column in mine. Where's my code? There, this one. The table. Yeah, these ones. So they told me to do those, and then they told me to do the rows on the rows. So I'm going to do this. Let's see what that does. I don't know if it did much on that. There we go. All right. Looking at my cheat sheet for a second to see if there's anything else I'm missing. All right, I think that's about it. In my original demo, all I did for mine is I pulled this out and made it its own component and passed in some information. I think for today, I'm not going to show that, but just know that if you look at my GitHub repo, I did pull this out to its own component, so you can kind of look at that and see how to do that. But for this, I'm just going to keep working with this. I do want to pull out at least one, because you do have to figure out how to pass props back and forth. So I am going to set up a component. So I'm going to say file, new folder, components. And then I'm going to say new file. This is to do table.tsx. And then remember here, I want to do an export. You could do the default. I am not a huge fan of the default, but I'm going to say import const to do table. And usually what we would do if this was not TypeScript is we would do the equals hold on. Yep. The equals arrow function. Do you remember this? So we would do this. That's how I would do this. Export const this and then do this function. Nope, that's a great question. So the question was, why is this TS and this is TSX? The X means that there is some kind of HTML that is going to get returned back. So it's not just the normal TypeScript of function. There's some visibility or visual stuff that goes along with it. So it's like XML, HTML embedded in here. And because my table is going to have some return of an HTML, that's why I do the TSX. My model, if you see here, there's no HTML or any of those tags. So you just do a TS TypeScript. Okay, so with this, my to-do table, also because this is TypeScript, so this is only for TypeScript. If your team is not going to do that, then you don't have to do this little thing here. With TypeScript, there is a React. This is, I think, functional component. This is a built-in component there. The problem is what are we going to pass into it? I think right now I'm just going to pass in the a to-do model thing like this. And if I say I'm going to pass it in, then I actually have to declare it over here. So then inside here, I'm going to say to-dos that are to-do model, like that. And I think it does not like that. We'll see how this works. I did it slightly different in my demo thing, but it'll work. So this is my to-dos. I will look that thing up here in a second. All right. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to do return. And then what we are going to return is what we had in this other one inside the table. So here's your table. And I'm going to just paste it right here. And then inside my app.txx, though, I got to come back here and I'm going to say to-do table. The problem is, remember how I said I had to pass in to-dos? So I do need to pass that in. So it'd be to-dos equals to-dos. But this is a variable, so I got to do that. I'm slightly confused about the TypeScript thing, because I thought it was pretty straightforward. Maybe. Let's see what this does in my code. Yeah, it doesn't like it. Okay, so to be honest, what I did in my code, I was trying to see if I can get away with not doing this. Right. What and I don't know if this, because I don't work with it all the time, whenever I import something, like if I'm going to pass in props into this, oftentimes what I do do this. Like this is something I actually like doing is I make a interface. An interface, remember, is just a structure. That's all that means. And then what I do is I call it to do table props. So these are all the props that I am expecting to come in, and that's the to-dos. It's this thing right here. Now what's weird though is the only difference is, I'm going to re-explain this here in a second. Because I declared what this was up there, I can then wrap this. And this is how I did it. Okay, so this might be a good thing to kind of think through. Okay, so to restart, I made a to-do table because it's TypeScript. So this is what you get away with if you don't use TypeScript, is you don't have to do this and this right here. If you don't do TypeScript, you just keep going. So you don't have to enter this in. But if you do want to use TypeScript because you just want to get familiar with it, this is a React functional component. Remember, this is one of my components. And then I do it this way. I create an interface for every single component that I have, and I call it whatever the component is, props. And then I make an interface that says, okay, these props are going to include these things. And then I pass it in. The biggest benefit in using TypeScript is whenever you are switching teams all the time, I can look at this and know exactly what I'm expecting right here, and I can code this component without looking at any other component. It's one of those, like, again, many times things have been brought up of like, why don't we just do it this way? And for personal projects and projects as small as your guys's, to be honest, I don't even know if I would use TypeScript if I were in your guys' shoes, if you were just wanting to get something out the door as fast as possible. TypeScript is not known to be fast. It's meant to be scalable. So that's why when you go to enterprise applications, something that's, you know, thousands of files big, they are switching to TypeScript if they're not already using TypeScript, because not because of the normal developers, such as like if I started a company and I just wrote it in vanilla JavaScript or in React, that's fine. And you can get a team together and there's somebody that knows how everything works. So it doesn't matter. But if I created something and then I leave the team, and to replace me, it takes twice as long to onboard people if you don't have TypeScript. So it helps out the scalability. Yeah, and again, you can use everything that I'm teaching here or showing you can be done in just without TypeScript. What you would do is you would remove this and you remove this. Everything else would be the same. So there's not much of a difference. All right, now this thing should work. There we go. Let's say that I do want to add something to the tables. So there are many different ways to do this. If it was me, something that I do not go over in this is routing. I might try to add that in a separate thing, is React routing and switches. You'll want to learn those. You absolutely need to look those. So learn those. So learn that. I just didn't have enough time to do it for what we were doing. But for that, I would have done like I'm definitely going to do a new component, new file. This is going to be to do add form or create form. Okay. So this is going to be the form that they fill out to add a to-do. So that's what I need. To do that, well, what do they need? Again, the generic is the export const to do add form. Again, I'm going to do the TypeScript here in a second, but generically you want something like this, and then you want to return something, some kind of XML, HTML, something. So again, for mine, just in case if you were wondering about TypeScript, what I would do is I would do interface, to do, add form props. And then I would say add to do. Now remember, if I was doing this as a separate component and not an added component on top of this, I would probably do this slightly different, but I think you'll get the idea from what I'm doing. I'm going to say description, which is a string, assigned, which is a string. And because this is going to be a function that I'm adding the to do, I'm going to say what that function really does, and it's going to return void. So again, this you wouldn't need to do if you weren't doing TypeScript, but I'm going to go ahead and do TypeScript, React dot functional component, and it's going to have some props in there. And the prop that it's going to be done is this add to do. I have not said what this add to do is. Here's the thing you got to worry about on React. This add to do, I could put that here. My problem is it needs to bubble up. The hardest part about React, something that I still struggle with right now, is knowing where functions and variables and what we call states should live, because I don't know what visibility they have with each other all the time. Like, you really have to think about it. So if I did an add to do here, it would not bubble upwards. It's easier to bubble downwards, but it's hard to bubble back up. So this add to do function needs to actually live in my app.tsx. So I'm going to actually have to add it right here. So how do I actually add? And this is where I am struggling a little bit, because my cheat code add to do I'm passing in a description and assign. Oh, equals, hold on. Equals. And then I want to add it to this thing right here. But remember, these are hard to manage right here. So we have not used this very much, but I want to bring back the use state. That's how React, if I just did this normally and I added a next ID or something, React would not display it because it doesn't know how to like re-render. So to trigger it to re-render, we have to change this into a use state. How do you do that? A use state has a two components or two things that it gets out. And then to pass that in, I think I just wrap it. Oh, I think I just wrap it like this. Let's see how good or bad my React knowledge is here. All right. So what this is saying, I didn't change much, except that I'm actually using the state. And remember, with use state, anytime I set the state of this, it's going to re-render this component. That's the power of React, is anytime you change something, it re-changes everything. So right here, that's where I need to have this. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like set to-dos. And then it's going to be the deconstruction of the to-dos with a new of ID. I'm going to make up a number here. Ooh, I don't know if it's like in this. Look at there. It eventually liked it. So what this does, it's going to set my to-dos. This thing right here, I don't know if we hit on it too hard, but whenever I have an array, a list, an array of things, I can't just do like the dot append. JavaScript doesn't do it that way. So what this does is it deconstructs. So it changes the array into its elements. So this changes it into the 3 things that I already have. And then I just add by doing another comma. So it's just like another comma here. And then I add my 4th one in here. Again, the only difference here is the TypeScript of these green things. Otherwise, you do the same thing. And again, I'm doing this add to do so that I can do my to do add form and pass in my add to do with my add to do like this. So this add to do action, the reason I had to pass it down is because my to-dos that I want to set live here. So I have to get it on the same level. The add to-dos and the set to-do have to be in the same component. So then what I'm doing is I'm passing this function into my form. Now I can go back here. Now that I have the add form, what I want to do is set up the actual form. I am going to copy and paste a little bit here so we can move along. The first thing I need to do is I need to set up my assigned and description. Remember, these are the things I'm going to set. And then what I'm going to do is create, and again, this has a lot of JavaScript in it. So I'm going to go through all, or Bootstrap in it. So I'm going to go through all of this together. Why doesn't it like it? Hold on. No. Did I add too many? Hold on. Maybe I did add too many. I did. Hold on. Copy and paste again. Okay, there we go. So here's what happened. I have a div with a class name. That just makes it look good. I have a form. We know what a form is. I'm going to have an on submit, but I haven't created this handle submit yet, but I will right here. This will be a const handle submit right here in a second. I'm going to handle that here in just a second. Remember a div, a label. Remember a label has a sign with an input of text. Form control, remember this is Bootstrap. This is Bootstrap right here. The value that I care about is the assigned. Remember, I'm trying to match this assigned with the value assigned. Something weird that I couldn't get happen until I did this on change was React doesn't naturally grab these like I thought it would, and maybe somebody else can figure that out. I just didn't want to spend much time, so I Googled it, and they said to do this on change. What that does is anytime I type a character, anytime I change this input, it sets the assigned value to be the value that I'm typing in. That's what that does. You could, instead of making it its own function, put it right here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be making the arrow function separate and then just passing in the key value right there instead of building it inside. So that's my assigned label. Here's my description label. I copied and pasted the text area because my description can be a little bit longer. I just put in, you can put in extra values. You don't have to have that in there. That just makes it a little bit taller with rows. And again, the description, and then I set the description. And then the button, submit button, is right here. So whenever I submit, this is going to handle the submit right here. Well, what do I actually want to do when I handle the submit? I want it to add the stuff. So what I did originally was I would just said add to do, and then I typed in the description and the assigned, and I did this. I also hit a lot of errors this way. This is where I am not a React developer, so I don't always know all the small nuances. But since I am setting the assigned all the time, and then I'm reassigning, anytime I did this, it sometimes would error out on me. So the things that I did the, we have done this before. Hold on. I'm just going to copy and paste what I did. What? Come on, import it. Why didn't it import this use state? Oh, because I copied and pasted. That's what happens when you copy and paste. If you don't copy and paste from that, it'll auto import for you. That's what you get for copy pasting. So I prevented the default. What that means is whenever I hit this thing, it's not going to do all of its normal fancy stuff. It's going to say, hey, stop and listen to what I'm saying next. And then it isn't going to allow the description, the assigned, to be blank. And then I am going to do the function like I just said there. And then I'm going to reset the assigned and description to blank. Let's see if this actually works. Oh, it doesn't work. And that's because in my app.txx, oh, I said to put it right here. Oh, there it is. I don't know why I had to refresh that, but I did. Assign. So then I added it right there. So I added it in. Now, here's the problem. I hard coded this number right here. So anytime I do this, it's going to do, I hard coded that. The reason I didn't try to come up with some function that sets that, because that will get set in the back end. My IDs will get set separately, so I don't want to have to mess with that. The other thing I do every once in a while is I just come over here and I look at this thing right here. And even though this will not throw an error, like it doesn't stop my functionality, I don't like errors over here. So one thing that it does tell me is anytime I have a list, I need to have a unique key property. So whenever I go to my to-do table, I wanted you to just open it up. My to-do table, if you look here on the map, every single one of these has the same key. So what I could do is just do the key, and then the unique identifier should be the ID. It should be. This gets rid of that error that you just saw. Now, again, because these will have the same ones, you'll see another error, encountered 2 children with the same key. But again, I'm going to take care of that later. So I added. Now I got to delete. Deleting is always fun. So assigned. I'm going to say actions. And then I'm going to do trying to get my cheat sheet out. So this one, I like this class name. Let's see what this looks like. There we go. All those errors, you just gotta love those. But delete, but again, my delete doesn't do anything. And so I'm going to do the same thing I did with the add to do with the delete. I need to go to my top level, which is my app.txx. And instead of doing an add to do, I need to do a delete to do. Now my delete to do, all I need here is the unique identifier. So I need my ID, which is a number. And then whenever I reset my to-dos, how did I do that? I did a filter. How did I do that filter? Handle to-do. So I'm going to do this thing right here. I think this works. So what this does, the delete to-do takes the number that you passed in. It sets the to-dos to be the to-dos.filter. And how am I filtering it? Well, I'm taking all those to-dos, and if the to-do ID that I passed in is not equal to the to-do ID that I'm looking for, then it's going to return it and it's going to keep it. So I'm filtering all the ones that do not equal the to-do ID. Now this needs to get handled. And that means that I need to pass it in the table. So I need to actually pass it in. Nope, not like that. I need to pass it in as its own thing. So I need to do this, but that means that I also need to pass it into the table. So I need to do this. But remember, since I'm using TypeScript, I need to do this. Is it like that? Or I think I have to do this thing. Instead of just calling it a function, I got to say what it is. There. Now it's saying it's not being used. That's because down here on the button, I don't have an on click yet. And on the click, this is where instead of creating its own thing, since I already have the function somewhere else, I'm technically making a arrow function right in the thing. And I'm going to say delete to do. And what am I going to pass in? I'm going to pass in the to-do.id of this component. So the to-do ID is the key, the to-do ID is the delete. Let me see what that looks like. And it does it. So it deletes it, deletes it, deletes it. Remember, whenever I assign it, it's always going to be the number 4 because I hard coded it. But it deletes it. And again, because I don't have it hooked up to a back end, when I refresh, my 3 always come back in. So this functionality deletes it. So hopefully this is at least basic of an app that you can see that I can create. If you use the delete functionality, I'm getting. If you do this delete functionality, you could technically do an update one. You would filter it and add all of these, but then you would also be able to add in and modify that one. So you can change this one to look similar to your add one and this one kind of pushed together, and that's how you can do your update if you wanted to do that. Right. So the big thing here is we don't even have a back end service. I spent this whole entire time looking at this front end. But this is the reason why. I can build back-end things super fast with the help of Spring. So if I go to start.spring.io, and I'm going to say this is a demo, and this is a to-do demo, I'm going to go ahead and select whatever's by default here. You can select 17 if you want to. I think for our things, it won't really matter. I think we want... see, what do we want? We want Spring Web. We want Spring Data JPA. We can use validation. I think this is that one that sometimes we forget to bring in and we still kind of use sometimes. So let's go ahead and bring that in just in case. And then I think I already skipped over it, but it's the MySQL, the MySQL driver. It's everything but the time leaf. We don't need the time leaf. I think this gets us everything. So then I just hit generate. It puts it in the zip file. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it or cut it, I guess. And then I'm going to go into, you see my UI. Oh, I forgot to name it. Hold on. It's easy enough. Hold on. Let's do this. It's going to be my API. There we go. Again, I need to make sure that I know it's my back end. So either you can name it API, you can name it back end, it doesn't matter. But then I'm going to plop that right here. So now I have my UI and I have my API. Remember, this is in my to-do demo. And then this one, instead of opening up in VS Code, this one I'm going to open up in IntelliJ. So that Console Ninja, is that a Chrome extension? That's VS Code. It is kind of cool. I'll mess with it later. So back end. Hopefully you guys got that easy enough to do that. My VS Hold on. Here we go. So with this stuff here, remember, the first thing I need to do is hook up my database. So this application properties, you just need to go into an app that you already have running, and you're just going to copy and paste those into here, and then change whatever you need to. So I'm going to create a database called To Do Demo. So I'm going to go to my workbench. Computer's starting to get a little slow, running too many things. So in here, I'm going to add the add schema. I'm going to type in exactly what I did before, which is the To Demo. It really doesn't matter the name as long as everybody agrees to it. And then I need to set up my administration of it. So I'm going to do user and to do password, add account, to do user, to do password, schema privileges. I'm going to add my to do demo, select all, apply. Oh, I already have a here. Usually that would be all. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually give this user access to both of my to-do apps, so I don't have to redo this. So there, my to-do user actually has both my actual app and my demo. And then the first thing I do here is I go and I see if this thing runs. So I'm going to hit this run, look at this, and I'm making sure that it actually connects. Oh, this says 17 because that's my default. But if you remember in my other thing, I set 21. So I have to go here and set 21. And then if I rerun this again, for you, if you don't feel comfortable at all with that, just set the 17. And I think it worked. All right, it started. Now, of course, I haven't built anything inside of it, so I'm just running it. That's to check that my database is good. That's all that's doing. I have too many times people think that it's something in their code that they've coded, but it's really their database connection and they don't know that. So again, controllers, models, and repositories. Those are the typical one. My model, I always build my model first. This is going to be a to-do model. My to-do model is going to be an at entity. It's going to be an at ID. It's going to be an at generate value, and it's going to be private. I do long just because that's what I'm used to. You can do integer or something like that. And then what did I say? Private string description and private string assign. This is where I do want to go back to my I want to make sure these are the same. So description and assign. Right. Remember here, I usually generate a constructor that's empty. So you select none. Because I don't want the ID passed in, I'm going to say generate constructor with the description and the assigned. Actually, I don't know if I needed to do that. Let's not do that for a second. Let's do just the getters and setters though. All right. So pretty straightforward. Entity, add the attributes you need. Make sure you have an ID. And make sure that I have anything else. To be honest, I am going to add that to do. And the reason why is the next, I know one of the next steps I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in the information I need and I'll need this. Right, so that's my model. The next easiest one is the repository. This is the to-do repository. Remember, this is an interface. This is super easy because I just need to do at at repository extends, and again, I use the JPA repository. I'm going to pass in the to-do model. And then my primary ID is a long. There we go. That's all I need. If you do like searching, which I strongly suggest you guys do searching in your actual project, you will want to add other queries in here. But for just normal CRUD, you do not need any of that. And then for my controller, I need my to-do controller. And remember, for me, because I want to do JSON type of back and forth, I'm going to do REST controller. I'm also going to do, I keep singing it and then it moves, request mapping. You don't have to do this first one, which is an API. But I'm letting you know this is standard in production. Whether you actually map it here, or to be honest, what we do is we do like a request mapping over everything and put an API at the beginning of everything. It's just typical. So when you have an API, everybody knows that it's an API endpoint. The biggest difference with REST controller is it automatically changes everything into JSON for me. I don't have to do anything. This handles a lot of the other stuff. I don't even know what to call it right off the top of my head here. I want this private. Private to-do repository, to-do repository. So remember, I'm trying to do stuff with the repository, so I need to do that. The first thing I need to do is do a git mapping. And this just gets all of them. So I need a public list of to-dos. Why did you not import? And I'm going to call get all to-dos. Return to-do repository dot find all. Look how simple that is. This right here will give me back all my to-dos. That's how small that is. But remember, I need to actually be able to create them. And instead of injecting them, well, how about we'll do this? We're going to rerun this. Do I still have my workbench up? I do. See if we get any errors from this. I did turn it on so I can see what this is. So it's there. I'm going to go into my workbench. I'm going to go back to, I know this is kind of hard to see. Select all from to do app. That's not the right one. I want to do demo. Hold on, let me clear all these out. Yeah, if you're on your team and you're like, hey, what can I do that's the least amount of work that looks really good? Do all the back end stuff. That's what you want to do, just so you know. Come on. There we go. So I have nothing in there. So what I want to do is insert into somebody might have to help me remember the syntax. What are the things I want? I want assign and description. That's spelled right, right? I am not liking that it doesn't have my will it like this or will it not? I think I have something slightly wrong. Does it not auto generate? You think this will work? Yeah, I already agree. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's I don't know how to do this. I'm only gonna spend a couple more seconds on this, and if it doesn't work, then I'm gonna. It's not liking that. Hmm. But you think I don't think it's space matters. No, this is field ID does not have a default value. For some reason, it's not like an auto generate. And I'm wondering if that's because of something that I typed in. Meaning I know that whenever I type in the model, you can actually generate value and you can say, is it strategy? I can't remember what this. Oh, generation type. That's what it's. Generation type identity, maybe with this. You guys usually drop these. Let's do that. No, can I drop? To be honest, once I just set this stuff, I just set it and I know things work. Yeah, it's still having the same problem. So you won't be able to pull stuff out without adding it. And so I might be able to try to figure out how to do that without doing exactly what I'm doing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the add part. So with this is the post mapping. And I'm going to say new. Let's just do new. Public. Whenever I add it, let's go ahead and return it. So let's do a to-do model. Save new to-do. Then in short, it's going to be to-do repository dot. Is it save? Yeah, save. And then you need to do a to-do here. That's in short what you want to do. The problem is we're not going to pass in with the ID. So what we are going to pass in is a request. Not mapping, a request parameter. There we go. Just trying to think of the right word. A request parameter that's a string called description. And then we're also going to pass in another one called assign. Right? Set the names. Yes. Description and assign. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, hey, make a to-do model that's called new to-do equal new with the description and the assign. So that's why I made that constructor so that I can go ahead and make that new one. And then I'm going to save that into here. Right. And let's see if that works. Now the question is, how do I even see if this thing works? Because if you're working on back end separate than front end, this is where Postman is like I was using it today even. I use this all the time. I'm going to go ahead and type in. This is localhost 8080 is what it's set to. So remember, this is localhost 8080. It's going to be /API/todos/new, and it has to be I have no clue. Okay, so right here, API/todos with an S. Yep. /new. So do you see how everything I'm doing right here, I haven't even touched the front end. And I've been able to just do all the back end development without touching the front end. I do need to make sure that these are in exactly how they appear. And then hitting the right API, it's a post, not a get. It's in my body, which is a raw JSON. Let's see what it says. Bad request. You can change the ports. I just let the defaults go, and the default says right here that Java usually goes to 8080. But you can change that. It says I had a bad request. Localhost 8080. Well, now that usually works. I'm going to see if I accidentally did something wrong here. No, I always use JSON. I don't use the form data unless this says for. Yeah, this says request parameter. I think there is a form. No, I don't know. So now that I'm using debugger and I hit that, let's see if it actually hits there. It does. And it says, I don't think it's grabbing my description in my assign, but it's hitting here. And then if I go, why isn't it going next though? Maybe it's not hitting here. Oh my. Missing servlet request parameter exception, required parameter description for method parameter type string is not present. That's so weird. I've done that before. It's hitting the right thing. Well, here, let's see if this is even liking this. Not found. Okay, so this is hitting right and okay. To-dos, new, post. My problem is I can't do anything else until that works. I'm going to do one other thing. Instead of update, I'm going to say create here. I'm going to rerun the program, and I'm actually going to yeah, I don't have any annotations because I'm not validating anything here yet. That's something that you can always add. Let's see if Method not allowed. Oh, because that's a get. This is gonna frustrate me. I have not ran into this. I was just doing this earlier today. That shouldn't change a single thing. Welcome to web development. While this is running, I got a brand new computer at work. It's supposed to be so much better, so much faster, but I don't know what configurations I had on my other one, but it wouldn't let me install Python. It wouldn't let me install any of the Python libraries. And I'm trying to create a script for migration that does all that kind of stuff. And it just will not let me do everything that I want to do. And that's how my day has been feeling. So here's my dilemma. This looks identical to my other application. Actually, this is what I did on my other one. But still, this isn't going to change a single thing because it's saying that my description, I just copied and pasted from my cheat sheet. And let's see if this will do anything. Yeah. Postman. This is saying to make sure that content type is this, which it is. I have no clue. Okay. I know a couple ways around. Here's what I'm going to do. This is exactly what my thing does. I'm going to stop this one. I'm going to open up my other one that I know works. And let's see, because you'll see that it's identically the same. The repository, the get all, the only difference is I have this delete. That's the only difference, which shouldn't matter. So let me start this one up and see if this one allows it. No, this can be on anything. Actually, you usually have that on everything. Except doesn't have to. No, because this is being sent anyway. So if we were getting sent that and then it doesn't want to accept it, that's different. But this is saying that we are going to send content type of JSON body. Even that one's saying bad. I'm gonna have to look at that. It works with the app. Hopefully you guys at least get the idea here. I'm gonna keep going with this. I'm gonna show you how to do the front end. You're just gonna have to trust me a little bit that works. But this is how I usually do it. That means it's another thing that I'm gonna write that down for Thursday. Get Postman to work. All right. On the front end, this is the main thing that I was hoping that many of you would stick around for. It's been a long time, been doing all this together. This is how you change this app from this kind of thing where I'm manually setting these into getting the information you need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm cleaning out my to-dos. So right here, when I start this app, I don't want any to-dos to be there. What I actually want to do is go grab the to-dos. So to do that, if I can find my cheat sheet, here we go. So for that, we want to go ahead and set up this Axios call. So because I'm using Axios, the first thing I'm going to do here is install it. So I'm going to do npm install Axios. This is going to make it so that we can actually do all of that. It should, okay, and then right here, again, some of this is going to be because of TypeScript. I want to set a const fetch to-dos. This is going to be an asynchronous call. You don't have to do it this way, but I would suggest doing it this way. And then remember that the colon here means that this is the type. The type is going to be a promise of a to-do model list or array. So that's it's going to be an async function that does this, whatever this is. So this is a typical thing that I Googled. So I didn't come up with this. This is what I Googled. What that means is this is just a common one that you'll see across anywhere. So I'm going to get my response. This is what I'm getting back from my backend application. It's going to be Axios. I'm going to do a get. Remember, here I'm going to bring this up. So remember, I'm trying to use this get mapping right here to get all my things. So I'm going to use a get. And then because I'm using TypeScript, I have to say what I'm actually getting. Remember, without TypeScript, you may not have to need that. But then I need to say, okay, so go grab this from somewhere. So what do I want to grab it from? I'm going to grab it from localhost 8080/API/to-dos. That's what I'm going to grab it from. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the response.data. Again, everything that I have done here is exactly what I Googled. So this thing here is a function that's going to go grab this data that's going to return it. And then I actually need to call it. Okay. Okay, this is where I get a little bit out of my vocabulary. I don't think we've done this thing called a use effect. But this is a thing kind of like use state. They call it a React hook. So I'm looking path variable. So I'm looking at the questions now. Path variable is whenever I use it as like a slash whatever. So I didn't use it as a path variable. I will figure this out and repost what I did to fix it because that will drive me nuts. I won't be able to do much. But then Axios is, yeah, that's very good. A library for HTTP requests. It allows us to do these GET calls. It's a very common one. It's a very generic. I think React has one that people have shown me that are very specific to React, but this is just a very vanilla JavaScript, a very safe thing. So again, so this use effect is very similar to the use state where it's what we call a hook. If there's something that changes, it'll change it. Because we want this to get called the first time, but never again. This is the suggestion that I have heard. I'll explain it once I get more of the syntax out of here. All right. So what I want to do is I want to fetch all the to-dos. When the component I want to fetch all the to-dos, so I'm going to fetch all the to-dos. I have that function now, so I'm going to call that function. And once that function is called, we're going to, after that, we're going to set the to-dos. And set the to-dos right here. And hopefully that will just work. So hold on, let me make sure that my backend app is running. My front end app is not running. Run. Let's see. All right, the add still doesn't work, but the get is not working yet. Uncaught, in promise. Okay. We're getting errors here that I did not get earlier. Oh, there's that console ninja that you guys were talking about. That's what I have in my other one. Here, let's add this error handling here that I do have. Cannot read properties of undefined. Okay, so if it's blank, I think this might be because it's blank. So how did I? I don't think I worried about blank. I think whenever you do a blank array and then map it, it just doesn't do it. Error fetching. So then what I want to do is set to-dos to blank. Let's see if this will at least fix that error real quick. Oh man. Did I even handle the this use effect? This is me not being super familiar with React, but this use effect I actually missed one little syntax thing here. Even though there's still an error, so that doesn't solve that. But down on the use effect, what happens on the use effect is you have to also state what it's looking for. I'm just going to copy and paste this real quick. This thing right here is what I was missing. I just knew that if I tried to do it by myself without bringing it in. This thing here is what this use effect looks for, meaning if I said to-dos here, what this would do is anytime the to-dos would change, it would rerun this. That's what use effect does. So you say what the function is, and it always runs the first time it picks up. So this runs every single time the first time the component runs. And then anytime this thing changes, it reruns. So it's a way to like attach a function, an effect onto a state or a model or some sort. Okay. That hopefully will at least take care of the multiple. Yeah, see how it just went twice that time rather than original, like way. The other thing is, now that I remember, I didn't put HTTPS in front of this local host. I'm wondering if that has something to do with this. Let me do this. Let's see if that works. Oh, there we go. Found out the error. Okay, so to review real quick, I did a use effect to bring it in. The actual thing I'm doing is this fetch to-dos. This fetch to-do is an async function. Remember, this part is because it's TypeScript. It's an arrow function, grabs the response. It's the Axios get method. And it's calling to this, and it's returning that data. No, I don't think the Postman, I think in Postman I did have it that way. Maybe I didn't. Hold on. Yeah, it's still, yeah, the get call works. Yeah, I'm definitely figuring that out. I'm gonna, it's one of those things that so this is really all that you use to get your data. You're using a get command. You're saying which endpoint you go to, and it's going to return this, whatever you said here. So you always use response, and inside the response, there's going to be data. So again, when I use Postman, the data is going to be whatever this is right here. And then all I did, remember, is I set the to-dos, my variable that I cared about, I set the to-dos to be that return data. So hopefully that was kind of straightforward on how to do that. Let's actually do some of the other stuff real quick. I'm going to re-go through this real quick. The This fetch to-dos, anything dealing with fetch calls, it is very common to go ahead and make a service. A services. You'll see this quite a bit. And because this is dealing with the to-dos, I'm going to call this the to-do service. And again, because this is not going to have any HTML coming back, it's just going to be a TypeScript or a JavaScript. It's not going to have the X afterwards. And then with this service, this is kind of what I did. I'm going to copy and paste this. So what I did here was I had the fetch to-dos. This should look very similar. I did an async function with a promise, the response with the response data. I did do some error catching. And then with the to-do, remember how we did the to-do? I just made it into an async function, but it's still the same thing, the function with these two things. Because it's async, I'm going to have a promise. I'm going to try to do the response. Remember, the response is going to return a to-do model. I do the post with the API to-dos new. The only difference I did here, instead of typing out localhost 8080 all the time, I just went ahead and made it a separate string there, and then I just put it in all of these. I could have potentially done the slash API here as well, and then got rid of these. We can probably do that too. Anything that's repeating, you try to get out of there. All right, and then to delete is the same thing. Remember, we took a number and we're going to pass in this parameter, and then delete it. With the service though, once I go back to the app, instead of calling this to-dos, I actually have to go get that fetch to-dos. And that's where you do need to import. You need to import the fetch to-dos. So you do need to import this function from your services. And then it's the same thing. I just moved it over. Again, because that Postman does not work. Yep. So the delete, right now the delete says that I'm going to delete with the to-do ID, and it's going to set the to-dos to be the filter, whatever. But because I'm not actually deleting it from the front end anymore, I'm going to delete it from the back end. From the back end, I still need that to-do ID that I passed into my original one, but I'm going to pass it in as a parameter into my I'm trying to think about why my Postman doesn't work, and I think I might have come up with something, but I don't want to do it here and with you guys right now. I'll post it though. So I have this to do, and then this gets sent as a post to the delete endpoint, and the delete endpoint goes over here, and the delete endpoint just says, hey, I'm looking for a request parameter that's this number, this long, and then I'm just going to do the to-do repository delete by ID and delete it. So it's a one-liner. Now I could try to return something here, meaning the delete by ID naturally does not return anything. So that's why I didn't return anything, but I could have said, I could have returned something if you want to, but I didn't. And so that's what this does. Now, how do I change that from my actual app? Then what I did was instead of it calling that to do, that delete to do, I surrounded mine with this handle delete to do. And then this thing is the one that got imported. Why is that? All right, so this, remember I need to import from here. I don't like these names being the same. So that's why I added this handle. And then whenever I pass this, I just pass the handle into my to-do table. This might actually just work as it is right now, or it's going to throw me. What? Yeah, there we go. So it added it. Oh yeah, I didn't do the add. Did you see how I deleted that and I deleted the 4 and it deleted both of the 4s because I didn't have a unique ID? So that's something else I need to change real quick, and then I think I might be done. Get back out of here. All right. So again, handle delete. The add to do, remember I said, hey, add it, but always add the 4. I don't want to do that anymore. What I want to do is I'm going to surround it with the handle. And then this add to do, I need to import from my other one. And then this handle is now going to be my add to do down here. So now whenever I actually add, it should add it. And remember, it got the 6 because it went to the back end and created this, and it automatically incremented because my database said to do that. So it's 7 because they each have unique IDs. I can delete now. And again, I have no clue why this is working with this, except for, I don't know if you noticed, I actually did use params. So I'm wondering if I need to add this in to my body. I'm going to do it right in front of you guys. I'll mess this up terribly, but that's fine. I don't think I've had to do this before. Not to get the new. It said parameters. I'm wondering, maybe it is form data. I'm just going to try it just because you said it. Oh my goodness, it does do it that way. How did I get it to do the JSON last time? Not this app, but I did do it on a different one. See how it just added that there? There you go. Use the form data. Description. And then when I refresh this, it's even here. There you go. That, I think you might have been the one that called it out there. I should have at least tried it. But I swear, about a month ago, I was messing with this and I was doing the JSON. I was doing it just like this. But I'm going to have to look back at my code to remember if I was using this or if I was using, I think I was using this. I'm just playing around now. I'm sorry to keep you guys. It's going to drive me nuts not to be able to do what I think I should be able to do. Request body, description. No. I know. I'll look it up and I'll definitely. I can't remember which of these because I just don't deal with this all the time. I'm gonna try this last one and then I'll stop this. I'll stop the video and then I'll answer any other questions. See, I just tried the request body and it didn't work. I think the request body wants a hole. So whenever I've used request body before, what I've done is I've set up like a model, kind of like what we did with the login DTO. I set up a model that I wanted in, that model would just have those two things. And I would say request body, and then I would say to do DTO. And then it would create that. So the request body, I think, is more for the whole entire object. Yeah. I know how to do it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to show you real quick. So you would do something like this, and you would say to do DTO, and you'd say like new to do DTO. And then I would create a model, new Java class. And I am actually not opposed to this at all. I don't want that to be an entity. So that's the other thing. I don't need this to be an entity. I just need it to have the attributes that I need. So I just need it to have these two things. So I would just do this, and then I would do the generate constructor that's none. Y1 related problem. I would do the generate setters and getters for both of those. What's the problem? And then this would be the to do TTO dot get. What? Why is this? Did I just say something to static? I have no clue. Oh, sorry. This. Man, I am just, it is getting late. That's all there is to it. So if I do the request body and I actually add these in and then I assign them to the new thing, this usually works. I need to restart that. Hold on. This is how I usually do it. And the reason why some of your objects might have like 8 different attributes in it, and rather doing like request parameter for 8 different things, I just create a DTO or some other model that has the exact attributes I need, and then just pull it in through the request body. So I am more confident about this than I am about these other ones, just because I've done this a little bit more. See how this one works. This is how I'm used to doing it, is creating some kind of model that has all of my attributes in it, doing the request body, and then, and you could, instead of this, you could do, because I did set up that other constructor, I could do it like this. It's gonna be the same thing. Oh. I'll just prove to you that it works. So that I think that's the hard part about coding, and especially teaching coding, is like there are multiple ways to do the same exact thing. And some people get frustrated on what's the way. And it really, some of these really are just personal preference. So there's 12, that means I added another one. So you got exactly. So that is the reason I do it this way whenever I code. It was noted this way. If I do it this way, instead of, let's say that I have multiple places where I'm passing in parameters. If I just change the DTO to have that parameter, then I can change it on the back end and on the front end in one place, and it just handles it everywhere. So yes, again, that's what I usually do. I was going fast to create this, so I wasn't. Right. Any other question? There are some questions specifically about classes. I will answer those here in a second. Any other questions about this before I stop the video, at least? I can even figure out how to.